message.
23 from the Father.
And material.
24 if you're still a monkey.
Even a monkey's uncle.
And original, hardly original. DNA being both message and material.
Mitosis.
Separation.
The end of singularity.
The beginning of individuality.
125 generations and counting, the dead among us. Not that anyone would mistake a life for a story.
170 new comedies born a minute.
82 tragedies.
Or culture for nature.
Dialogues.
Otabenka.
Pound of flesh.
Hottentots.
Or a person for their representations.
Rito Bandito.
1 billion speakers of Chinese. 5.3 billion speakers of 6,000 other languages too. That's 5.3 billion mouths, opening, closing.
10.6 billion heart valves.
Opening, closing.
Eyes spilling with equal ease from every one.
11.7 billion gallons of blood.
Ebbing, flowing.
Tide and time wait for no man.
Nor a woman, obviously.
Still, it gets confusing.
5.3 billion times 60 trillion cells, each both message and material.
Bodies becoming as rearrangeable as they are.
And malleable as they are.
People and their bodies being inseparable as they are.
For it unable to dispense with his own body, of course.
Perhaps the real reason the Bronx Zoo set Ota free was because they couldn't break his habit of shooting arrows at visitors who taunted him.
That is, the message is the material, people and their stories being as inseparable as they are, material also being the message, logically.
Zoo visitors and their heart waves being as inseparable as they are, ergo.
Ego.
Cultures and their stories being as inseparable as they are.
Impossible to extinguish without taking out the body.
The medium also being the message, as we all know, bodies and their cultures being as inseparable as they are. A tomato is still a tomato is still a tomato, even if it contains the genes of a fish.
Some things never change.
Life is still a tragedy, a story,
A genesis.
passed down for generations. Birth a comedy.
Common is laughter.
The point is, do we ever have a choice?
Common as.
Or are we the organs of our century, which is to say,
Play.
don't even start to talk about when life begins.
Code.
Origins being so much more diffuse than endings.
The end of your story having only one address.
He could see what was happening, this transubstantiation of being his body into having his body, but caressing the rough and smooth of its epidermis, to all appearances unchanged. He couldn't grasp it, couldn't hold it in his mind to change from wine to water, any more than the moment message becomes material, material becomes man, man becomes patient, patient becomes material, and a heart cradled by latex fingers from ice chest to some other's meaty cavity, drinks in and starts a new life, servant to some other emperor with no clothes. It occurred to Square that he hadn't always known he lived in Flatland.
How much could the average square ever know?
At first, he thought it was simply a flat land. Then she was there, her hand on his shoulder, as if to what? Tighten their troop of two? To say with a touch that she did, after all, understand, and that it would be okay. She had gone through worse, after all, and she'd come out okay. Handsome, even, though her beauty was best described as rugged, the way the earth was made operatic by the ages. Gray outcroppings in her hair gave her the seriousness of a judge, but a seriousness that was sensual. Her body, like those of the catalog models, young enough to look better without robes, though unlike the models, old enough to have had all trace of frivolity weathered away. The combination of a mature face on a toned body, speaking a sensual depth beyond the young, informed as it was by requiem. I suppose it would be natural to include a sex scene in a story like this, he wrote, but how to depict it? She silenced him, putting her hand on his.
An ancient cliché.
The scent of her hair still close.
Still pressing the right buttons.
Stirrings within, beginning again, what?
Square peg in a round hole. Pistol and stamen.
Albert Edeldorf never wondered. Painting lots screwing. Fucking was dark back in 1510. What made man animal? Pan copulating with goats and anything else he could catch. So always the man was shown mounting the woman from behind.
Making the beast with two backs, as Shakespeare had it.
Often upright, 1,000 years of authors and painters and clergymen and just plain folks were sure it was
satyrs,
a fashion,
and gardens,
a style,
and oysters and horny nature.
bestial, and could imagine it no other way. But today, where the main sexual organ was the brain, and making love is Polysemith's language, roses are red, violets are who's on top? Unless forgiveness could be found, after all, in 4 letters, AGCTs of amino acids, bodies making what bodies always made of language, the pre-larynx, come, imprinted on a single partner.
cementing the pair bond,
A softening in Circle's eyes, call it dilation, indicating that she was receptive.
Hearts and flowers,
And 186,000 years of conditioning, the Pavlovian dog within secretes catecholamides. Estradiol binds to estrogen receptors.
moonlit serenade,
Likewise, testosterone washes cellular organization of the male variety. Hypothalamus, vasodilation following strictly the double helix law. Hearts also anticipating exertion, precipitating vasocongestion of spongy tissue, beating within the law of the letter, the alpha and omega of cells propagating themselves. Motive without mind, his bilateral symmetry having suggested to her, unawares, a high probability of average gametes, average being more desirable than Valentine's for its lack of irregularities. Likewise, her clear complexion, 0.7 hip-to-waist ratio, and sound teeth, a biology of selection, often pronounced by these apes naked. Love? Thank you.
every story should end on the word love. New standard. Anyway. So those of you that are familiar with Oz, and those of you who are in my class are reading, you can understand why Steve wanted to try to read it in multiple voices, I think, after his meeting with our class today. But we'll open up to questions if you folks have any. If there are any, I don't know if we can see you. Very far away, very earthbound. You feel much higher than all of you up here. So any questions for Steve and his book? You seem to have said it all. Well, anyway, we will let you folks go. If you have any questions for Steve, he's here to ask privately if you prefer. And we also have some books up here. His prior book, many of you have Baz already, but also In and Out, which was his first book. And I encourage you to talk to him about them, because they're both extremely interesting texts, and he's obviously doing some good work. But for tonight, thank you very much for coming, and maybe we'll see you in the spring.